2020 was such an unprecedented season that it's hard to keep all of the storms straight, even if you only consider the impacts we saw along the Gulf Coast. Bruce Katz is here to help put it all in perspective.
We started with Arthur and went all the way down the list to Wilfred. But just because we ran out of traditional names, it didn't mean that Mother Nature was finished with hers. For only the second time on record, we used the Greek alphabet that took us from Alpha to Iota. The only other season on record to use the Greek names was the infamous 2005 season when Hurricane Katrina struck. The number of records last season set is almost endless, but here are a few. 11 storms hit the U.S. coastline. This broke the old record of 9 landfalls back in 1916. And if it felt like we were in the cone of uncertainty for the entire season, well, you really weren't that far off. Take a look at this map where most of Louisiana was in the cone of uncertainty for nearly 24 days, nearly a month in the cone. And here's part of the reason. Out of the 11 United States landfalling storms, 4 of them hit the Louisiana coast. We had Cristobal, Laura, Delta, and Zeta. This ties the record for the most Louisiana landfalls in a single season set back in 2002. And when it was all said and done, remarkably, only 3 storms were retired by the World Meteorological Organization. Of those, we had Laura, Eta, and Iota. Just like Southwest Louisiana had back-to-back landfalls with Laura and Delta, the same happened in Central America. Eta and Iota struck Nicaragua just 13 days apart, and both as Category 4 storms. So what about this year? Here are the names for the 2021 season. It begins with Ana and goes all the way down to Wanda.
All the signs are still pointing it to be an active season this year in 2021. Now, are we going to have 30 storms? That's highly unlikely. But let's look at where the hurricane forecasts are landing, at least right now. And almost all of them are calling for normal to above normal activity. These are different hurricane forecasts from private and public companies. Notice no one is down here in the low category. So at least a normal season is to be expected with an above normal chance of it being active. Water temperatures, that's the first place to start. This is the Pacific Ocean. Here's the coast of South America. Last season, we had this strong La Nina in the Pacific. That supercharged the atmosphere and allowed these hurricanes to be extra strong and to go very late in the season. La Nina is currently weakening, and if we look at the current climate models, most of them are splitting it right down the middle, indicating neutral conditions. Remember, if they were up here saying a strong El Nino, that would really suppress our activity. But right now, in a neutral state, we can still have a busy season under these conditions. What about in the Atlantic? The subtropical Atlantic waters are a key place to look before the season begins to know if the Atlantic could be busy. And that's the area generally highlighted here. And this is showing warmer than normal temperatures. So that is an indicator that the Atlantic could produce a lot of storms. Now, what about our long-term average? Look at this. Here's 1961 to 1990, and now we have our new climate normals, 1991 to 2020. Notice the chart has been trending upwards. A lot of this is because satellites are detecting storms that we didn't see back in the 30s and the 40s and also the 50s. But nevertheless, our long-term average has increased from 10.6 and about 2 to now 14.7 and 3. So how does that compare with the forecast for this year? The latest forecast from NOAA is indicating 13 to 20 named storms against the average of 14, 6 to 10 hurricanes. That would be a big season. And 3 to 5 major hurricanes. Compared to last year, there's our record-breaking 30 named storms, an incredible 14 hurricanes, and 7 major hurricanes. What's the bottom line? As usual, these hurricane forecasts don't mean much to you and me. What matters is if we see that one big storm, and that's why every year our risk along the Gulf Coast is exactly the same.
When we talk about a storm undergoing rapid intensification, it usually means that the winds increased 35 miles per hour in a 24-hour period. However, 3 storms in 2020 underwent what you would call super rapid intensification. Delta, Iota, and Eta's winds increased by at least 100 miles per hour within just 36 hours. There are only 8 other known storms in the prior 169 years of hurricane records that strengthened at that rate.
First, Category 4 Laura. Oh! Then Hurricane Delta.
I just am mentally exhausted.
Coming up, the scramble to rebuild a storm-ravaged community ahead of another potentially busy season. You're watching a Fox 8 News special report, Weathering the Storm 2021. More from Fox 8 Chief Meteorologist David Bernard right after this.